And now you're tuning in to the Women Unplugged podcast.
Hello, plugs. Welcome to episode 7. Okay, this one is going to be called Systematic Racism, No More Silence. Today, we want you guys to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Women Unplugged _. And don't forget to check us out on YouTube at Women Unplugged Podcast. This is your girl, Bougie Candy.
I'm Penny Maud, Penny for your thoughts, aka Annie Oakley with the pen.
And it's your girl, Lavina J. I got the news, the tea, whatever you need.
Lavina, what's the news?
Okay, so we have a little bit of news to celebrate, which is the fact that Trayvon Martin's mother, Sabrina Fulton, is going to run for office in Florida. I'm so yes. Everything all around, honey, because this is something that we are always pushing for and vying for in all of our episodes. Just, women in general standing in the places that we need to be standing. So if you don't know who Trayvon Martin is, to know who Sabrina Fulton is, unfortunately in 2012, Trayvon Martin was 17 years old and he was shot by a neighborhood watch volunteer while walking home from a convenience store. So just continued prayers for his family. To lose a child, I can't imagine, but we definitely support them. And in that, are so excited and so happy to hear that Sabrina is going to be running for office. So according to the New York Times, Sabrina is going to, or is, contesting with the mayor of Miami Gardens for a seat on the Miami-Dade Board of County Commissioners, which would be she is in line and on the board to make decisions in her state, honey, which is so, so, so important. So we definitely support her in that. And I just wanted to briefly read a quote for what she said. She said, "At first, I did not want to be the voice for Trayvon after he died. But now I see that I am called to act and called to serve." So we just want to give a shout out to Sabrina Fulton. We support you. We support all women standing up in their rightful place and taking a stand for what is right and what is true in their hearts. And so we can really see some change out here. So of course, ladies, I got to ask you guys, how do you feel about women standing up and running for office?
Hello. We have a long history of women's rights being separated in this country from other rights or just other movements. So where there was a lot of men in history who were Black and white, who may not necessarily have agreed with women having the rights that we have today. So I just want to say that I can see how with everything going on, you have women such as herself or just individuals who we don't necessarily want to be the voice. We don't necessarily want to be the leader of the movement, but it comes to a point where it hits home. In this case, this was her son. It hit directly home for her, where who else is going to do it? It does come to a point in our community where there's so much of fear and negative history and association with fighting for our rights that even as women too, I do feel like we have that double standard that makes us even more hesitant to fight the fight. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be done. So I'm just going to take my hat off and my wig. Kudos to you because you're setting the example. People say it every day. You're making history today. Today is setting forth for the future. So it's going to be other Black women and other women out there who are going to be more willing and less afraid to step up to the plate and take on a challenge such as herself. So for the greater good, that I feel like a lot of us are hesitant to do, or we just are kind of waiting for the next person to do it without really realizing that, hey, it can start with you. You could be the one. You could be the next person to start another movement for something that can be impactful on a national level. So kudos, kudos, kudos. I'm loving it.
I completely agree with you, Candy. I'll take off my turban, the bonnet underneath, to Miss Fulton. So a while back, I saw an episode of Housewives of Atlanta, and Portia was having a pep talk with her mom. And her mom so casually just said, you know, Black women, honey, we just have a strength we pull from the earth. And that stuck with me. And when I was doing my research on Sabrina, that's what I thought of with her. Like, I don't know what it is to be a mother, but I know a child is not supposed to go before the parent. So for her to not only have lost her child, but have him taken the way that he was, and for her to push and persevere and to take that pain and turn it into strength to become a social justice, social activist, and now run for office is monumental to me. To see this woman become the change that she was not given as a mother, to possibly put that change in motions for another Black mother to not have to go through what she went through, that is poetic to me. And I salute her. I agree with you. And I look forward to a future where we have more women in office, because that is absolutely something we need.
100%. And I think, to what you guys are saying, a key point is somehow we as women, and in my opinion, honestly, we as a nation, have equated office with the highest office in our nation, which is our commander-in-chief or the president. So we forget about all the other offices, especially in our state, that make the most difference. So to the women or men, the young women and young men who may be listening, or if you're watching this on YouTube, know that there is more to offices other than the presidency. You can be a governor, you can be a state treasurer, you can be a judge, you can be a state senator, you can be an attorney. And word to everything that we have been dealing with, you know, George Floyd's case was just yesterday, but the district attorney was the person who made a massive difference in the charging of these officers. Where at first, you know, the Minneapolis mayor, I don't want to get his name wrong, let me make sure I say it right, Jacob Frey is the mayor of Minneapolis. He was pushing for all 4 officers to get their rightful treatment, get charges, and be charged for murder. But it was their district attorney, Mike Freeman, who rebutted and said, well, I don't think anybody deserves anything. I think they should all be fine and go home. They were doing their job. And then again, you have, you know, the general attorney, and it goes up from there on who ended up making the decisions. And now we know they were all charged and they were all in court on the 8th. But those people make the decisions that we feel are so important, especially at a time like right now. So again, if you're watching this, if you're listening, know that you do have an opportunity to make a difference. It is not far from you. It is not too far away. It is not too hard. It's not too difficult. And we support you in that. But November 3rd is around the corner. So ladies, I want to know, do you vote, and why do you vote?
I'm gonna speak to myself, because I feel like a lot of people in our community is going to relate to me. I need to register. So y'all need to get your Black behinds up and go register, because it's never too late. You're going to feel the guilt. I hope every Black person out there is like me, who waited to the last minute because we some procrastinating, you know. And I hope you go register, because I hope everything that's going on is putting fire inside of you, and it's making you want to be active. It's making you want to get up and vote for your local elections. I am a hypocrite, because I'm a person that I have a political science associate, so I understand politics. I understand the power of voting. And I also understand how your local elections, I don't ever want to say it's more important than your presidential elections, but has a more direct effect on our community than the presidential election, okay? Like Lavina said, your sheriff, your councilmen, your councilwomen, your state representatives, amongst other positions, are all positions that you can go and vote in Georgia. Everyone has gotten a ticket. If living in Georgia, it's inevitable to not be in traffic court. It's inevitable to not come across certain things or certain people to think that it doesn't affect you. We do have this perception that it doesn't matter, right? But let's be clear. It's different if you didn't vote or you didn't make an attempt to make a difference and you're saying, oh, it doesn't matter no matter what we do. We have to first, as a community, as a communal effort, not one person or two people or one family or two families, as a communal effort for the rights that our ancestors died for, go vote. Go get registered if you're not going to vote. So for that November 3rd election, you have no excuse, okay? And then next time around, this year, next time around, you can go vote. So I'm speaking to myself here, and I know I'm speaking to a lot of Blacks in the community right now. Pay attention. Rioting and the looting and the protesting, yes, it definitely has an effect, but we have to make sure the right people are in place first, so that they can back us when we start to come to the table with issues and when we start to come to the table as a group to fight certain things. So please, 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 y'all, if you're not registered, just get registered, okay? So by November, we can make sure that we're ready, and that next time for next year, we can all show up and show out like we're doing right now, okay? So that's all I'm saying, because I'm with a lot of Blacks. I ain't registered, y'all. I ain't gonna say nothing now.
Oh my gosh, Candy, I completely I'm with you. I really appreciate your transparency with that, because sometimes it's like, ooh, for a minute, I didn't even know if I was still registered, but luckily my stepdad stays on top of those things and like make sure he tells me and my mom, hey, you know, I got the ballots here. What do you want to do? Blah, blah, blah. So definitely I was able, by the grace of God, to vote, and I'm proud, but a little embarrassed to say it was my first time being a part of a primary election. It's always just been, not premeditated, like a subconscious thing where every 4 years vote for the president. Cool. I never thought of that. And you see in movies, you see in TV shows, you hear certain conversations in passing, because I stay away from news typically. I stay away from politics. Now more than ever, I have been educating myself for the obvious reasons, but I've never, you know, my first time voting was for Obama's second term because I was 17 the first term, and then every presidential election after that. And I was a part of 2018's, gubernatorial for Stacey Abrams. And I went November and December, so I was mad, but I still participated. But it's just crazy how even in your adult years, there are things that you should know that you don't know. So at least, you know, better now than never, and just educate yourself, because I'm still educating myself.
Right.
You know what
and
I
for
mean?
Stacey Abrams and Obama, I did. And I just say the first step is to go check to see if you're registered. And I'm telling you, y'all, I feel so ignorant. I feel so bad. I feel guilty at this point, because it's like, dang, you know, I know better. And I'm still, we have a tendency to always complain about how nothing's changing, but what are we really doing outside of the rioting and the looting and the protesting and the social media posting and the conversations between one another on a political scale as a larger group and the community to really make sure we're trying to make a change? So we have to first say we did it to start complaining about it, right? So for me, I'm with you, Penny. Outside of Obama and outside of Stacey Abrams, I have not voted. And I haven't been staying on top of it to make sure I'm registered either. So it's so many people in that category, either because of fear or just simply thinking it doesn't make a difference, that, okay, I get it, y'all. I'm there with you, but we have to at least first try. We have such a distrust in the government that at least if the stats and the numbers show that we're showing up and we're voting and we are putting these people in politics after doing our research to be put in that position, now we can start being more proactive with those people that we've elected and hold them more accountable with making decisions for our community. But if we're, like I say to people all the time, and I've been saying this since everything's been going on for the past month or so, I'm like, hey, whether my Black behind get up and go vote or not, their seats are going to get filled, whether we go or not. So just realize that those district and state and political seats are going to get filled, whether you go vote or not. So would you rather have a say-so in it or just be the typical person that's complaining about something, but you're not being proactive? Let's be real with each other at this point and be real with ourselves, y'all. Hold ourselves accountable instead of always pointing the other finger. So,
right. Period. Hold ourselves accountable. And something that I want to say is we're not demonizing the people who don't vote, right? There are people who, if you've been to prison and you committed a felony, unfortunately, you cannot vote, which means you have to use another medium to get your voice across or to get your word out. Or if you are knowledgeable, informing your friend who can vote on why they should vote. And that is the point that we're trying to make, you guys, is that every voice matters. And when you use your voice together and we do it in unity to everything that we have seen up until today, we can make a difference and we can make a change. And it is important to know that. I personally vote because at first Black people couldn't vote and then Black people could vote, but women couldn't vote. And I am both. So I exercise my right because of that reason, just for me. That's how I see it. So that's why I'm saying, if you don't want to go to the polls in the future, make sure that you're just doing what you need to do and you can do it from the comfort of your own home. You know what I mean? So you guys, that is the news for today.
Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. So, y'all, we've been having so much going on, like we just keep talking about. And like you just kind of touched on it, Lavina, where, okay, let's say I'm a felon. I can't vote. You have a lot of us who may not have access to the polls or just from biases, don't believe in it, or just are, may not be able to do it. So there's other things that people, or other ways that people in our community are finding ways to express themselves or get their voice out there without voting. And we all see it all over the media right now. So you got the looting, you got the protesting, you have the rioting going on, right? So for me, I'm all for it. I'm a big fan of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. You had the double-edged sword. One was violent, one was non-violent. Well, I don't want to say violent, but one had more assertive methods and one was non-violent. And I feel like I'm starting to see a divide in the Black community with those of us who are kind of pro-rioting and looting and protesting, and those of us who are kind of with the non-violent approach and non-looting, or the more like less violent, any type of less violent protesting or whatever the case may be. So the first thing I wanted to get your ladies' opinion on, because for me, I can see the expression in both, and I can see how both have definitely affected, the way that our politicians and the way that our country is pretty much reacting to the community. I do feel like on one side, hey, yeah, you have a lot of property damage or whatever the case may be. But would you guys be paying so much attention to it if there wasn't property damage? If we weren't targeting buildings, if we weren't targeting multinational corporations, I don't feel like it would be getting as much coverage. On the flip side, is it the kind of coverage we want? We already have such a negative stigma in the Black community about how we have a tendency to react to things, or how they try to put stigma on the way that we are as far as our characteristics, just us being viewed as being more violent prone. So ladies, how do you all feel about the protesting and the rioting mainly affecting businesses that are owned by whites, and then some businesses that are owned by Blacks?
Honestly, so when I saw, because we're in Atlanta, so when I saw looters in Phipps Plaza, I thought to myself, okay, you're not in the hood, you're not in Swats, you're not in, you know, the heart of Atlanta. So even though some looting did happen in Atlanta, but yeah, because when their dollars are affected, that's when we'll get some type of reaction out of them. We haven't heard from quite a few businesses who benefit a lot off of the Black dollar to even make a statement. So that's where I stand with the looting. In terms of Black businesses being looted, completely against it. I'm someone where it's like, okay, if you're gonna loot, see which business is Black owned. But I also do see where business owners do have insurance, this, that, and the other. I can't imagine someone knowingly looting a Black owned business, especially behind why they're looting to begin with. But sometimes you do have just this moment of just rage with everything that's going on. So I don't condone looting a Black owned business, but I do understand everything else, basically. You know, when I heard about Black owned businesses being looted, I was like,
I'm with you on that. I was like, I'm not trying to be, like show bias here, but it's like, it's kind of going against the purpose of what you're looting for if you're looting the Black owned businesses, right? So I know Lavina, look at Lavina can't wait to say something. What you got to say?
Y'all know I'm a little nervous because I don't want y'all to kill me, because, you know, I just said,
Lavina is a mom. Lavina does not approve. Lavina does not approve.
Disagree. Okay, I disagree. What I will say in regards to the riots and the looting is, it is important to know that they are experiencing this, because you can never control how people mourn. You can never control how people communicate their anger. There is no way to articulate it. So though I do not agree with it, I 100% understand it. And I would never tell another person of color how to reflect their feelings and their emotions based on what is happening around them. I'm very clear on that as well.
I'm with both of you ladies, where you're both all saying the same thing. We cannot control the way people react to the way that they have been treated, abused, or oppressed, or systematically targeted, right? So at the end of the day, like you said, I've taken psychology. We have been desensitized to so much things where, yes, now at this point, we're reacting. It's not the reaction that they're expecting, and it's not maybe the even best or most appropriated reaction, but can you really control, or if there is no right or wrong way to go about this thing here? I'm agreeing. It's about listening. People are going to express themselves through social media, rioting, the looting, the protesting, voting. We're expressing our voice in so many different ways. But are the multinational corporations who really do control so much of the economy, who do receive a majority of their profits from the Black community, with us being the biggest spenders, are you all listening? Are you all trying to just suppress it, or are you all really taking in the frustration from the Black community and trying to fight with us? And I don't mean physically or violently, but taking a stance on which side of the fight you want to be on? Or are you guys just really much trying to wait till it pass over, or just take a step back and just see what happens? Because not being proactive is still an action. Okay, you're still making a choice. So I agree with you ladies. It's all about us at this point taking a stance, businesses, individuals, multinational corporations. It's about taking a stance at this very moment so that we can make a next step forward. That's all I got to say about the rioting, the looting, and the protesting. Fight on. Fight on.
Okay, somebody. Thank you for that, Candy. So next, I want to talk about with you guys, speaking of Black businesses, I want to talk about supporting Black-owned businesses. So a while ago, I saw Killer Mike's Kill Shot series on Netflix. And the first episode he discussed, which took me by surprise, that the Black dollar only stays in the Black community for 6 hours, which is the least amount of time, of course, to other communities. So especially with what's been going on, I personally have been doing my best to not only support Black businesses, but be mindful of who I'm giving my business to. It also has opened my eyes that there are a lot of dents in a lot of areas where we can start Black-owned businesses. Like, we can start farms, we can start grocery stores. There are so many holes in the system that we can do. There aren't any Black-owned hotels. So I wanted to touch with you ladies on this and see, like, what are some of your favorite Black-owned businesses, and what are some tips you could maybe give our plugs as to how we can come together, keep our dollars in our community, and go from there.
I have two that just off the top of my head. One of them, and we've had her on the show, is Curvy Betty Wines. Her wine and her service is just next level. And I think we have said it before in a discussion, but I am so big on not just being a Black-owned business, but having that freaking quality that is so important that we see in so many other businesses and franchises. That is what we are paying for. When I spend my money, I'm trying to spend it on quality. Anything less, I'm not trying to spend my money. It's the reason why we have so many Apple products. Hell, I got an iPad, an iMac, an iPhone. I have all of it because of the quality and because of the service I get when I purchase it. So I think that is what's important, especially as we, as Black people, are coming into being Black business owners as well. The second that I support is, because I love makeup, is Beauty Bakery. Mm-hmm. Now, Kashmir is the owner and CEO, and she is a Black woman. There is a lot of Black-owned makeup lines. I will say that. There are many that can be supported. For me, the quality of the product, the time that she puts into every single product to stay on brand, that you have flour, that you have baking powder, that you have, icing, foundation, that you have, she stays on brand and the quality is so on point. I can't help but to support. And I didn't realize that until, I tried it out and I saw that. But I definitely agree that it's important to support Black-owned businesses. In addition to, if you're listening, just know, if you're starting a business, make sure your joint is quality. What you never want is somebody to spend their money and be like, oh, but I'm never going to do it again because I went home and that mug fell off, or I went home and I couldn't use it, or it didn't work. You don't want to be that either. We want to support each other and not have to come back and be like, yo, which I hope we do as well, because I feel like that's not a thing we do enough either, is be honest. Hey, this ain't the formula. But if you do it again, I believe that you'll get it. And that is me supporting you to say, you can make it better. It can be greater. Let's do it together. But sometimes we get a little bit offended too. There's a lot in there. But overall, obviously, you guys know, I'm saying support your quality. Quality.
So I'm with Lavina, where I'm going to say, first off, definitely support Black business. And I have been where I've supported Black business and the product wasn't as quality. So I did not go back to that Black business. I went to Lily at the beauty supply and got it for the low. And that's not right, because the Asians circle their amount way more than the Black community. Everybody do at this point, but they're not missing any type of money circulation. We are. So realizing the wealth statistic has been stagnant when it comes to Black or African American community and the wealth or income mobility. I mean, it's ridiculous when you look at it by race. We have to be our own examples. So I say support friends, okay? And be real with your friends. Let them know if their product isn't quality, as Lavinia says. But also, at this point, if you're in certain places, especially a place like here in Georgia, I know 15 females off the top of my head that got a business, okay? And I know that I have supported like my roommate's business, High Maintenance, and I've supported my friend China's business, Amore the Love Line. They both have clothing lines for women. China has clothing line for people and Shatana has it for women. But it's like, you just start somewhere, even if it's your mom, your brother, your friend, your ex-husband, your baby's mother, your support, okay? And what is in our control is where we spend our money. Know that as the Black community, we are the biggest spenders, okay? And to a certain extent, that is not by mistake, but also understanding the power in our money, the power in, once again, a communal effort in shifting where you spend your money. I feel like it's more powerful than voting, and it's more powerful than rioting and protesting and looting, okay? So be mindful, support each other, and supporting each other is being real with one another. Where you put your money in a capitalistic country will give you way more of a say-so than you may think, okay?
And I think the main thing too is patience, because a lot of these corporations didn't become corporations overnight. And us investing, giving honest reviews and reinvesting in each other is what will continue to build Black wealth, closing the generational wealth gap. So I absolutely agree with you, ladies. And also, outside of good old Google, you have beauty influencers like Jackie Aina, who's always talking about Black-owned businesses, especially Black-owned beauty businesses. You have apps like Black Nation that literally give you lists of Black-owned businesses that you can support. So the same way we Google some song lyrics because we forgot the artist or the name of the song, we can Google, hey, who looks like me, who I can support if you don't have anyone in your circle that you can support.
Message.
And forgive. Patience with each other and building our brands, and forgiveness. The same way some of us can forgive Gucci. Come on now. Come on, somebody.
And that is what it is. And so while we're speaking on communities, we must address systemic racism. So part of this conversation is one of the movements, which we all know well, which is Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. Now, I'll just go ahead and burst the bubble and say, I agree that all lives matter. But all lives cannot matter until Black lives are included in the all. And the current conversation is the poignant part that Black lives have been undervalued and not considered in such a way that we are being killed in the street, just running in our neighborhood. We are being murdered by police for using a counterfeit $20 bill without asking any questions, or we are walking home with tea and Skittles. I have been watching a woman by the name of Jane Elliott. And if you don't know who Jane Elliott is, I encourage you to look her up. But she is mostly known for a brown-eyed, blue-eyed exercise that she did with her third grade class a long, long time ago. But in researching Jane Elliott and her beliefs, I came upon a video that you guys may or may not have seen on social media. But in this video, she simply asked white people, if there's any white people here who want to be treated the way that Black people are treated in this country, please stand up. And nobody stood up. And she simply said, the fact that no one did stand is the truth that you know that something is happening, but you don't think it's okay for you but you're happy to accept it for others. And I want to know why. And for me, that was like a flashing red light. I was like, man, that's exactly what it's like, because it seems like we're fighting this Black Lives Matter with All Lives Matter. And we have made it about race in such a way that we have missed the whole point, that racism is no respecter of persons. In my opinion, there is only one race, and that is the human race, in which we are all a part of. I know we all have a little bit more melanin than each other, or somebody has a little bit less, but there is only one, which means we do all deserve equality, which means, yes, all lives matter, but Black lives have to be included in the all, or all lives are not mattering. And that is where we are right now. All lives are not mattering because Black lives have not been mattering. And we are suffering from death and police brutality at a rapid rate. And I just want to, in everything that I feel, I just want to say that specifically to my mothers out there, this whole conversation starts at home. This whole conversation starts at home. Racism and bigotry is not caught, it's taught. Children don't come out of the womb racist. They don't come out of the womb bigots. It is something that they have seen, that they were influenced by, that they then picked up on, and then they made it a lifestyle. They made it a paradigm. They put it on like it was a jacket. And people have been doing that and wearing it for as long as who knows. But to my mothers specifically, if I have the conversation with my kids at home and you don't, you've just killed the movement. And if you have the conversation with your kids at home and I don't, I kill the movement. And we have to see it that way, because at the end of the day, we are talking about human beings, Black, white, purple, or otherwise. So that's my stance on systemic racism. You can agree or disagree, but that's how I feel about it.
I absolutely agree with you, Lavina. And that's crazy, because as an aunt, as a big sister, it's weird for me to have certain conversations. So I cannot imagine being the mother of a Black child and having that conversation, or knowing that one day you will have to have that conversation. Because as an adult, I have my moments of complete fear. I have my moments of complete rage. Sometimes I don't know what to feel. Sometimes I don't want to feel. It's debilitating at times. And Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, I think it goes back to a conversation we had prior to the start of the podcast, where I think it's just a matter of always being included in something. So when you hear something like Black Lives Matter, all you hear is, oh, I'm not involved in that, so how can I involve myself in that, instead of the broader picture and educating on yourself on what is going on. I will also say, a lot of the images I've seen and the videos that I've seen, I was actually surprised at how many allies we do have out there who do see the treachery still being bestowed upon the Black community, and standing alongside us and using their voices for us, using their privilege to say, nah, this ain't it. Come on now. Because they're now seeing it. It's scary to see how someone can still not see it, mainly when they choose not to see it. But there is some change going. But with using their voices, I would like for them to also educate their brothers and sisters, their family, their communities who are still finding trouble understanding it. I saw a video earlier where a young lady was explaining to her parents, who were completely ignorant to a lot of things in the Black community, oh, they just want to be ghetto, they choose to be like, and she's like, no, and she couldn't have been older than 17, explaining to her parents the oppression of Black people. So it's absolutely taught, and the ignorance can stick for many generations, as it has while we are still dealing with what we're dealing with. But I do have faith that change is coming, change is happening, and that we will have brighter futures in this country because, like we said, we've been saying enough is enough. Enough is absolutely enough. Oh, I also want to say real quick, sorry. Sometimes, because when we think, like you talked about your grandparents, Lavina, like when we think of like the stock that we come from, I'm proud of where I come from and who I come from on both sides, right? So I had a moment where I'm like, you know what? It's sad, and it's also not my problem as a Black woman in America, but sometimes for a person sometimes for a white person, I could see where it's like, when not necessarily they look at their family history, but when they look at the history of people who look like them, they still have to look in the mirror and they have to self-identify.
Let's say the modern day white person is not racist or they are not slave masters, right? You are still benefiting from that white privilege or from the ancestry that is associated with the slave master or the oppression. So a lot of it is just guilt. For me to ultimately acknowledge that there's a privilege involved or that you do see that I'm getting more of a privilege than you, there is a guilt associated with that. That a lot of times may not necessarily be coming from that particular individual. Like I said, they may not be racist. They may have never oppressed a Black person. They may not see color. They may agree more with, like you said, Penny, they're willing to fight for Black Lives Matter more than anyone else. But there's still a guilt that is associated with that with acknowledging that your ancestors played a role and that you are benefiting as white privilege today, there's a guilt that is associated with that. And a lot of us are not ready for that. And going to the ignorance factor, you have a lot of Blacks who, or not even Blacks, just a lot of individuals where it comes to history, that slave narrative is not something that's just taught here in the States. That is something that's taught across the globe. It's called globalization. Okay. And globalization is going into institutional racism or systematic racism. The systematic racism, according to the definition on Merriam-Webster, it says it is a form of racism expressed in the practice of social and political institutions. Okay. It is reflected in disparities regarding wealth, income, criminal justice, employment, housing, healthcare, political power, education, among other factors. This is on Google. I typed in systematic racism definition. This is the definition of what we are going through, people. Understand that. Okay, I'm talking about wealth, income, criminal justice, employment, housing, healthcare, political power, education. This is everything. We are being targeted and oppressed racially. Understand that. And with others understanding that will come a guilt because they are not being as proactive and they do understand historically that their ancestors have played a role in the oppression and the institutionalism of the Black community. So I'm going to say this. I have been becoming more educated with what's been going on and being more proactive. Like I said, I'm going to make sure that I'm really considering doing like a registration event for all the people like me that's not as active as we say we is, you know, and afraid to admit it. But yeah, we're going to do a registration event so that we can be on point next year because it's never too late. So, but I am looking at women such as Tamika D. Mallory. Okay, this is a lady scrolling on Instagram and she went viral, y'all. She literally went from like 300 something K last week when I followed her. Went to her page today, 780 something K. She's went viral because she is so powerful with her message on how the violence and the looting was something that was taught to our community. It was something that we picked up through colonialism, through slavery, through institutionalism, that yes, we're reacting the way that we have technically been programmed to react. Yes, we're reacting the way that other people react to us. You're afraid, we're afraid. You want to fight, we want to fight. You took our shit, we trying to take it back. That's the way that people are naturally going to react. We're human beings, it's pattern behavior. And I say that to say this, where the powers to be that know the problem. And it's really up to us as a community to stand not only firm, but consistent. Go get registered, go vote, but not just this year. Do it every year. Don't stop just because of this until the next person dies. Keep the message going. Don't support Black business and go back to Lane next month, because we all done did it before. Don't go back to Lane next month. Stay persistent. Like, we have to stay persistent, especially when it comes to our money. And going back to the money, because like I said, it's a capitalistic country. When you hit them in the pockets, you hit them where it hurt. Realize we are the biggest spenders, y'all. We keep saying it for a reason. It's power in the dollar. It's definitely power in the USD, but it's power in how we spend it as a community. Be mindful. And that is the purpose of the looting. Well, the supposed purpose of the looting is to send these multinational corporations who do capitalize and profit and get rich off of so much of our money that, hey, you need to be fighting this fight with us. You need to be standing with us, because we are the ones that are supporting you. You are not supporting us in our fight. Black people have never had an issue with supporting others. Clearly, we don't. If the dollars stay in the community for 6 hours, not even a day, stop it. Be firm in understanding, hey, it's okay if you just want to support Black. And I feel like we need to have that type of mentality for a while, to not just send a message, but to send a long-term message that we, first and foremost, instead of pointing at every other race, we are willing to make the sacrifices and support each other to see a change. And then you will naturally start to see other communities fall in line when they see that we're disciplined enough to do it for ourselves. Okay? So I'm going to just ask you guys, like, it was real powerful for her to say that we learned violence and the looting from colonialism and slavery. So what do you ladies think about that? How do you ladies feel about her seeing that the characteristics that we see, or that negative stigma that has been associated with the Black community, has been something that has been learned from what has been done to our community?
If you have not seen The Black Nouveau, it's a 3-part interview by Jane Elliott, and it's on YouTube. Please watch it, because as an educator, she's an educator, she discusses the fact that we don't teach the correct geography. We don't teach the correct history. We don't teach the right things. We teach it with a American or United States slant on it to get the point across that someone wants to get across. So to what she is saying, yeah, it's learned. If people of non-color came to America, i.e. a Christopher Columbus, where Native people were already here, and claimed, oh, I've discovered this land, I've found this land, and now every October up until a couple years ago, we have been celebrating Christopher Columbus Day as opposed to Indigenous People Day, which we do now. That was stolen. Those people were already here. Nothing was discovered. That is learned behavior. We learned just in that moment how to steal and make something our own. There's so many other examples like that. Slavery is one of the biggest examples. Nobody asked, and I was saying this to Penny on the phone the other day, and I was making light of it, but I was like, nobody said from Africa, oh yes, please put us on this boat, send us across the seas. We know half of us are gonna die, and then when we get there, we're gonna work for you for free. You're gonna kill our children and our husbands, or you're gonna separate us. It's fine, because then eventually we're gonna end up fighting wars for you, for the freedoms that you want, and then still have to wait for the equality and freedoms that we want and we need. Nobody asked for that. That was never in anyone's vocabulary. That was not a request from the Black community to do that, but it was done. And again, that is a behavior that was learned. If you're just gonna pick it up and steal it and take it for yourself and claim it as your own, why not? Why can't I?
I completely agree with both you ladies. it's, if you're taught that this is the nature that built this country, perhaps reciprocating that energy will allow our voices to be heard. I completely agree with you, ladies. So today's P4YT. The P4YT for this episode is, long story short, I watched Godfrey Comedy's podcast, and he had a comedian friend of his, Dante Nero, on there. And Dante gave his definition of white supremacy, and I never heard this before, and it blew me away. He said, this is white supremacy. A black fish swims up to a white fish and says, hey, the water's great today. And the white fish says, what water? And that is the epitome of privilege. When you don't have to even educate yourself, or even the fact that you're unaware of your privilege is privilege. And that is why we are fighting and protesting the way that we are, just to simply be heard. So yeah, that's the P4YT for today.
That was deep. That was so deep. And the white fish said, what water? Yeah, that's what war? What fight? What lives? What you talking about? What racism? I don't know. What racism? What y'all talking about? That's the mentality. Not everyone has that who isn't in the Black community, but a lot of them. And naturally, I can understand how you cannot relate because you're not from the community, so you cannot relate to what's going on. And that's why we have to vote and get people from our community in positions that can relate to what's going on in our community.
It couldn't be more on point. And just like we always say, this is a heavy conversation. And we here, Women Unplugged, we are allies for everybody. We believe that everybody deserves equality. But what we're discussing right now is keeping the topic of discussion going. It is the responsibility of Black people everywhere to talk to other Black people, to actually find a plan of action so that when we're speaking, when we're protesting, that there is something to stand on. We don't need the old things, the things that already were that didn't work. We need new things. We need new systems. We need new ideals. We need new goals. So when you hear us today, please don't hear demonization. Please don't hear you're not doing enough. Please just hear that from this point forward, you can do something different. But prepare for November 3rd. Prepare for the special election. Prepare for the next couple years where you know that you have at least 6 months to get a mail-in ballot. Start educating yourself. I don't think we can say that enough. Continue to educate yourself. Make sure you're getting the knowledge that you need. Make sure you're having a conversation. Don't take a responsibility that's not yours, but also stay in your lane. Everybody's lane is not to be out protesting. Maybe your lane is to just post something on social media. Maybe your lane is not to post something on social media. Maybe your lane is to talk to a friend whom you know does not understand. That is making change. And that is what we are doing and what we are asking you to do. So if you don't already, make sure that you follow us on all of our social platforms, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. It is @WomenUnplugged_. And if you are catching us on YouTube, it is Women Unplugged Podcast. So we love you guys. You'll hear from us in a few weeks. Bye.
Bye, Plug!